Hop onto the channel itself. It's currently loading as I speak onto the channel. I'm gonna have to give it some time, I suppose, to properly load up. There it is. Alright, game audio is working, party audio is working, the stream's up, the chat's up, we're all good to go. It's absolutely fantastic. Hello everyone, and welcome to round 13 of the PlayStation America series here on Race Spec Esports. I'm LaneEveringham, your commentator for this event, and this time we're racing at the Yas Marina circuit for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Constructed in 2009 and designed by track-making Supremo Herman Tilke, Yas Marina circuit has gone down in history as one of the worst racetracks in Formula One. In the real world, the circuit is infamous for creating, at best, mediocre races. This is actually quite a bad thing, considering that the circuit has a contract that cements its place at the very end of the championship. More often than not, a season of Formula One will end on a dull and dreary note, thanks to this stupid, godforsaken racetrack. Fortunately, in the virtual world, the circuit tends to be a bit more interesting. The circuit was reconfigured back in 2021 to try and improve the racing. The circuit now measures up at 3.28 miles. It consists of 16 corners, but still has 2 DRS zones that lead into the main overtaking spots of Turn 6 and the new left-hand sweeper of Turn 9. Drivers can also try and pass into the new hairpin of Turn 5 and the reshaped right-hander of Turn 12 in the third sector. Now, before we focus on this qualifying session here, there is a bit of news to go through first from last week's race in Brazil. First of all, apologies for not being able to stream that event. I had console issues last week that plagued me quite a bit in trying to stream certain league races. Fortunately, though, I think those console issues are now resolved, so we should have an uninterrupted stream here for the America series today. Now, there was a single incident report from last week's race, but it came up as no further action from the stewards, so the final results stand from the race in Brazil. Long story short, Mighty Wombat won the sprint, Axis won the main race from Mighty Wombat, and Nico completing the podium places. So the Drivers' Championship looks like Wombat is still leading the way on 264 points, followed by Axis on 245. 19 points separate the top two in the championship with only 3 rounds to go. So it's well and truly on for the Drivers' Championship, with Nico in third place, now on 223. He is 41 points behind our championship leader and 22 points over for Nico, not by a long shot. There's still plenty of points on offer, so he's still very much in the championship hunt. JBH is fourth on 195, followed by SC Collider on 157. Next is Blockman on 116, followed by KD 1997 on 105. P8 is Saucy on 99 points, followed by Underwood on 94. Then Rebellion rounds out the top 10 on 72 points. In the Constructors, it's not quite as tight. McLaren are leading the way on 369 points, followed by Aston Martin on 305. 64 points separating the top 2 in the Constructors. It really does look like McLaren is going to wrap this up sooner rather than later. Mercedes-AMG are next on 262 points, followed by Alpine on 229. They're in a tight battle with AlphaTauri as they're on 223. Next is Red Bull Racing on 201, followed by Ferrari on 179. Then Haas on 128, Williams on 119, and Alfa Romeo at the bottom of the order on 42 points. But that's pretty much it in terms of news. We can now focus on this qualifying session. Hello, Ferrari Pro. Nice to see you in the chat. Where's KD? Don't know, to be honest. But he's not here attending this race, unfortunately. So, Wombat is the only McLaren out there on track today. Not the greatest attendance either from America's series. We've had decent attendance in previous races, but here for tonight, it's not particularly great. Only 13 drivers. We could have 2 on the way in the form of Blacks and Guitar Hero, but we'll have to wait and see if they'll join mid-session. If not, I'm still hopeful of seeing an entertaining race here at Abu Dhabi. As I mentioned, in the virtual world, Abu Dhabi can toss races as Saucy jumps to the top with a 24.1. Black Baller heads around the final corner to cross the line. He'll set a 26.0, fifth quickest so far. Yeah, Abu Dhabi, it can create an interesting race or two, even with a reduced field size. So I'm still hopeful of seeing something interesting here today. But, I suppose we'll just have to wait and see how it all unfolds. Underwood making his way around turn 9, Axis beginning a flying lap, so we'll keep an eye on him as well. Underwood making his way around the marina section, around turns 10 and 11 and into turn 12. This corner is a lot more open than what it was on the previous layout. Similar story here while going underneath the hotel at turns 13 and 14. These corners are a lot faster, they're a lot more open. Same with turn 15, the penultimate corner, and around the final corner, turn 16. Bit surprising there, Underwood didn't get a warning for running as wide as he did at turn 15, but he didn't get a warning, so that lap counts. It's a 1 minute 25.133. Axis, it seems that he's making his way into turn 9. Getting very comfortable on the exit there, using a fair chunk of the outside curb as he heads into turn 12, down through the gears, down to 4th, clipping the first apex and underneath this hotel section, which is a really important area of the racetrack that drivers need to be mindful of. It's probably one of 3 key areas that the drivers really need to be careful of around this racetrack, in terms of hazards anyway. You've got the hotel section, you've got turns 2 and 3 in the first sector as Axis jumps to the top, and you've got the exit of turn 9, which has claimed quite a few drivers. Something that a lot of people have noticed with this updated version of Abu Dhabi provided to us by Codemasters is that the track doesn't have a great deal of grip. It's very easy to lose control of the cars. And in those 3 areas in particular, it's very noticeable. Yeah, that's my main hope as well for Opro, that everybody can get through nice and cleanly. Because, yeah, with only 13 drivers on the grid, having drivers retire during the race, it wouldn't be a great look. And the drivers, well, so long as they finish, so long as all 13 drivers finish, they all score points. So you do get a little bit of something, so long as you make it to the end. As JBH heads around the final 2 corners on the racetrack, turns 15 and 16, makes his way back onto the main straightaway to cross the line. Not at all a competitive lap, 1 minute 32.451. But it's a benchmark. He'll give himself a delta that he can reference on future laps. Hopefully he'll be able to set a more competitive lap time. Flavius getting ready, same with Mighty Wombat and Captain Schmeg. Axis is on in-lap, I believe. Same with Shizant, from the looks of things. Logman getting ready, Saucy getting ready as well. Tell you what, we might ride on board with Flavius, give you a guided tour of this 3.3 mile racetrack. Down the main straightaway, towards turn 1, 7th gear, breaking out the 100 board, bringing it down to 4th gear, clipping the first apex, nice and steady from Flavius, as he heads into the tricky turns 2 and 3. Very easy to lose control of the car there. You can see Flavius just lifting off the throttle, trying to keep stability as he gets on the brakes, brings it down to 4th gear, down to 3rd, missing the apex by a fair chunk, but no wheel spin at the exit as he heads onto the back straightaway with DRS open and heading down towards turn 6, climbing up to top gear. The C speed's over 200 miles an hour, over 205 miles an hour in fact, as we go into the hairpin of turn 6, 2nd gear, short shifting up to 3rd, making his way out to turn 7, and around the little left-hand kink of turn 8. Don't really understand why it's an official corner on the track map, but it is. Up towards turn 9, bringing it down from 8 down to 5th gear. Does he use 4th? No, just keeps it in 5th. Nice exit out of turn 9 now. Doesn't bother using any of the outside curb as he heads around turn 10, around turn 11, and into turn 12. He overshoots it, runs wide, cost him time as he heads around the hotel section now of turns 13 and 14. Then up towards the final 2 corners on the racetrack, turns 15 and then turn 16. Turn 15, you do have to be a little bit careful. If you use too much curve, you can lose control of the car. You can spin out into the inside barrier. So taking a precautionary lift, as Flavius did there, isn't necessarily a bad idea. Mighty Wombat making his way underneath this hotel section, out to turn 14, and towards the final 2 corners on the racetrack. You can see that little lift there. He went to about 85% throttle as he goes around the final turn up towards the line. It's a 24.155. Look at this. We have got 4 cars in the 24.1s. Sortsy, Mighty Wombat, Blockman and Nico are all in the 24.1s as well. There we go. Blockman's just done a 23.9. He's gone to pole position. Can Saucy get into the 23s? Yes, he can. He can take pole away from Blockman. A 23.8 from him. Mighty Wombat, he's going back into the pits, I think. He's on an in-lap. Nico is in the pit lane. It seems like Captain Schmeg might be on an in-lap himself. Underwood's up by 0.2 of a second to the first sector as he makes his way around turn 5 and down the back straightaway. He'll open DRS and head towards turn 6. Climbing up to top gear. What kind of top speed will we see from the Ferrari? We saw 205 from Flavius. See 204 from Underwood there as he goes out to first gear, then back up to third as he makes his way out of the chicane hairpin complex of turn 6 and 7. Up towards turn 9 now. He'll cross the middle sector split. The clock says he's up, and by quite a bit as well, by 0.6 of a second. If he can find that sort of time in the final sector here, he might be able to challenge the front row. Let's find out how he'll fare. He'll head around turn 12. Short shifting up to third gear, coming out of 12, short shifting up to fourth as he heads underneath the hotel, using plenty of the racetrack on the outside of turn 14. He'll make his way around 15, using all of the racetrack again as he heads around the final corner, up towards the line for Underwood, and it will be a 24.5. So I couldn't find a massive amount of time in the final sector. In fact, I think he lost time, so he'll be P7 at the moment, just behind his teammate Hash in P6. Axis on an out lap. He's getting himself ready for another run. Currently P3 with a 24.0. As Motion God, I believe, has elected to retire from the session. He's done it on the main straight. He's voluntarily retired. So his qualifying is over. Now, Axis will make his way around the final 2 corners and head down the main straightaway to start another flying lap in this qualifying session with just under 6 minutes left on the clock. Into turn 1, 5th gear, then up the hill towards turn 2 and around the fast right-hander of turn 3, 7th gear. Little safety lift there as they go through turn 4. What does the clock say to the first sector? He's up, and by a fair chunk as well for the first sector, by just under 0.2 of a second as he heads down the back straightaway towards turn 6. Shifted into top gear as he heads towards the sharp left-hand corner of turn 6. Entry speed 205 miles an hour, brings it down to just under 45 miles an hour at the apex of turn 6. Nice exit out of 7 and through 8 as he climbs back up through the gears and heads towards the left-hand sweeper of turn 9. Clock says to the middle sector, he's up, and by a fair chunk still, by just under 0.3 of a second, as he makes his way out to turn 9 and around the marina section of 10, 11 and turn 12, down to third gear, back up to fourth as he heads underneath the hotel, keeping it in fourth gear. Nice and stable from the Aston Martin driver, no oversteer whatsoever. This car looks very planted and very fast as he heads around the final corner, back onto the main straightaway. It's a 23.366. Improves by 6.5 of a second to retake pole position by a considerable amount as well. JBH, it appears that he's on an in-lap now. He's just done a lap at 24.2. Hash has invalidated this run, so he's not on a flying lap. Black Baller, meanwhile, is not on a flying lap either. Flavius is getting ready to set a flying lap. He's out on track. He's driving patiently, letting the clock run down. But now we've just got a lot of people waiting to set their final runs. I think that is Shizant leaving his pit garage, making his way out onto the track. JBH has come to a stop. What's happened here? Oh, he's now gone going again. What's this? driving very, very slowly at the exit of turn 4. He had no throttle input, no nothing. Now he's gone going. It's strange. Howdy, Bags. Nice to see you in the chat. Hash is going into the pits here, and I believe Axis will be going in as well. Should have enough time to get back into his garage, put on another set of tyres, and set one more flying lap in this session. Flavius, meanwhile, he's down to the first sector, down by a tenth to the first sector, currently slowest at a 28.0. He makes his way onto the back straightaway. He'll open DRS and head towards turn 6. Hello, KD. Good to see you in the chat at the very least. As Flavius makes his way around turn 6 and into turn 7. Oh, clobbering over that inside curb. He'll open DRS and head towards turn 9. Will he improve here to the middle sector? Let's find out. The clock says he's down by a fair chunk, by 0.4 of a second. So he's got a fair bit of work to do to try and find time in the final sector. Shizit, meanwhile, will begin a flying lap. Currently P11 with a 25.5 as he heads around turn 1, 4th gear. Nice and stable from the Red Bull drivers out of turn 1. Can he get through 2 and 3? Yes, he can. That car looks pretty good through the high-speed sweepers as he's up by 0.3 of a second to the first sector. So he's found a chunk of time straight away. Used plenty of curb on the outside of turn 5 as he'll open DRS and head towards turn 6. Axis is retired from qualifying, so he wasn't able to get back out of his garage and back out onto the track. So that's the benchmark. 1 minute 23.365. That is the time for everyone else to try and beat. Saucy, currently P2 with a 23.8, will begin what could be his final flying lap of the session. Down towards turn 1, hard on the brakes, down to 4th gear, back on the accelerator. Red Bull looking stable, just like his teammate. Through turn 2, around turn 3, keeping it absolutely flat through the fast right-hander. As he heads towards the first sector split, he's up by just under 0.2 of a second. Mighty Wombat, meanwhile, he's on a flying lap. Down towards the first sector split. He's down, though, by 77 thousandths. Blockman, meanwhile, he's making his way through the final sector, getting himself ready for his final flying lap. Saucy, meanwhile, heading into turn 6, down to 2nd gear, back on the accelerator, short shifting up to 3rd. As he makes his way around turn 8, he'll open DRS and head towards turn 9. Now, what will the clock say to the middle sector? Has he found any time? The answer is yes. He's up by 0.3 now. He needs to find an extra 1/10.5 here in the final sector to try and challenge for pole position. Out of turn 11 and around turn 12, down to 3rd gear. Keeps it in 3rd through 13, and around turn 14 he still uses 3rd. Up to 4th gear, 5th gear, 6th gear as he heads around turn 15. One corner remains, turn 16. He gets through it unscathed. What will the clock say? He lost a lot of time in the final sector. It looked pretty tidy from what I could tell, but no, he lost time. He lost a fair bit of time. Blockman's up by a 1/10 to the first sector. Mighty Wombat's done. Best he can do is a 23.9. So can Blockman challenge for pole? Well, he needs to find a whole chunk of time in the final sector if he wants to challenge out of 9 towards turn 10 and towards turn 11. Nice and quick from the Haas driver, down to 2nd gear as he makes his way underneath the hotel, carrying 3rd gear, modulating the throttle nicely, using all of the road on the outside as he heads around turn 15 and up towards the final corner, turn 16. Can he take pole from Axis? The answer is no. He misses out by less than 1/10 of a second. He did an awesome job finding all that time in the final sector, but it's not enough to take away pole from Axis. I don't think anyone else will be challenging pole position now. I think everyone has finished qualifying. So there we are. The man who was P2 in the championship is P1 for the start of this Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Alrighty. And the man who's P1 in the championship, I might add, is starting from the second row in P4. Be very interesting to see what kind of strategies we'll see here in the America Series for this event here at Abu Dhabi. So, the results from qualifying. Axis is our pole sitter. Blockman P2, just 79 thousandths of a second behind Axis and his time for pole position. Saucy is P3, followed by Mighty Wombat, then Nico P5, JBH P6, followed by the two Ferraris of Hash and Underwood. Shizant is next in P9, followed by Captain Schmeg. Motion God is P11, followed by Black Baller, and Flavius will start from the very back of the grid in 13th place. And I don't think anyone joined during that session, so we'll have a grid of only 13 cars for the start of this event in Abu Dhabi. Alrighty. And Flavius has informed me no rain for this event. And you may think that's a given with Abu Dhabi, but I have had experiences, or rather a experience, of a race at Abu Dhabi that did have rain and had dynamic weather set for the race. So it is possible to see rain here at this racetrack. It's essentially a 1 in 1,000 shot of seeing it though. I see some hard tyres around. Might see a few drivers starting on the mediums maybe. Wouldn't be too surprised. What I saw in Pacific Tier 1 was that a lot of drivers wanted to start on the hard compound tyre, then move to the mediums. I wouldn't be too surprised if we see the opposite from the American Series. In Elite Series, I think I remember seeing about a 50-50 split in terms of those on the mediums and those on the hard tyre, if memory serves me right. Let's see who starts on what for this race here at Abu Dhabi. As the drivers set off on their formation lap. Yeah, there we go. It's a bit more of a swing towards the medium compound to begin with. So Axis, our pole sitter, is starting on the medium tyre, with Blockman alongside him in P2, starting on the hard tyre. Saucy in P3 is starting on mediums. Then the next three cars, Mighty Wombat in P4, Nico in P5, and JBH in P6, they're all starting on the hard tyre. Hash in P7, Underwood in P8, his teammate, and Shizant in P9, they're starting on mediums. Captain Schmeg is the last car to start on the hard compound tyre. And the three drivers behind, Motion God, Black Baller, and Flavius, they're all starting on the medium. We've got 8 cars starting on the medium tyre and 5 cars starting on the hard. So majority swings to the mediums. It'll be interesting to see how the hard runners fare during this race and whether or not we'll see any safety cars during this event, because a well-timed safety car can well and truly change the complexion of a race. Now, we'll get rid of the tyre graphic for now. Get ourselves ready for the start of this event. But an interesting call from Axis to start on the medium compound tyre. His goal is to try and pull away straight away, build up a gap to those behind him, and then try and compensate later on in the race when he's on the less grippy hard compound tyre. But he needs to make this first stint count. That's a really important thing. If he doesn't make this first stint count and he has hard runners right behind him during laps about, I don't know, 4 through 9, then yeah, he won't be in a great place later on in the race. He needs to pull away straight away. Similar story with Saucy as well. I believe he's on the mediums. Yes, he is. So Saucy and Axis, they would want to get a move on straight away and build a gap to those behind. Rightio. All 13 drivers should be lined up ready to race. We got 29 laps in front of us and 5 red lights. And it's a jump start from Underwood. We are underway in Abu Dhabi. So not a great start for the Ferrari driver at all with that jump start. But Axis has had a brilliant start. Look at him pulling away. Yellows are out. It's Captain Schmeg on the pit straight away. What on earth happened to him? He's got front wing damage as well, I believe, as Blockman and Saucy are battling for P2. Saucy's getting swallowed up by those behind him as they head into the hairpin of turn 5. Side by side is Nico and JBH as they head on to the back straightaway. Side by side is Blockman and Saucy. Who's got the longer legs? Is it the Red Bull? Is it the Haas? As they head down towards turn 6. Saucy has the inside line. That's now been trying to be taken up by Mighty Wombat in the McLaren, but Wombat, couldn't get down the inside. There's a bit of lag, put me off guard there. Nico drops down to P6. He drops down behind JBH as they head down towards turn 9. Wombat on the attack, looking down the inside of Blockman at turn 9. He tries to keep the nose there. He's got the nose in front now. Blockman gets decent drive though, running wide is Shizant in the Red Bull. As they head around turn 11 and into turn 12, it's tight, it's very tight, but they all get through, and Wombat takes third. So they head underneath the hotel, and around turn 14, running a tad bit wide there, Blockman, but he doesn't put all 4 wheels over the white line, which is the most important thing. But Axis, what a brilliant start. Yeah, he was already 5 car lengths in front of P2 as they head down towards turn 1 on the opening lap. He had an absolutely brilliant start and he's gapped the field massively. For some reason the intervals aren't properly working, so we've got to give this a little while for the intervals to start working accordingly. As it stands right now, Axis is our race leader. Saucy is in second, followed by Mighty Wombat. Blockman's in fourth, then JBH and Nico. Hash, Black Baller, Shizard and Motion God rounds out the top 10. We had 2 drivers go into the pits. Underwood to serve his drive-through penalty for jumping the start. As Hash looks down the inside of Nico here. Oh, it's tight as they head around turn 7. Oh, and Hash loses control. He turned the battery on far too soon. Way too soon. You can see he's still got it turned on. He needs to turn it off. There was so much power going to the rear of the car, he lost control and he spun out. Saucy now trying to pull away from those behind. Got a bit of a gap forming already as Shizant gets by Black Baller. Black Baller's a tad bit vulnerable to Motion God as they head into turn 12, but he should have enough of a gap to keep the Alfa Romeo behind. Meanwhile, this leading group still tightly bunched together. Hopefully the intervals start working now. Okay, 2.8 seconds is the gap between P1 and 2. 1.3 seconds is the gap between P2 and 3. Wombat would ideally like to get within that one. It's going to be next to impossible to get within it. He's a bit too far behind. As a result, yep, he won't get it. Man making his way around turn 5 and onto this back straightaway. He's got DRS. He'll open it. He's buried in the slipstream as they head towards turn 6. He's not closing in by enough to try and attack into the left-hander. He's going to stay behind and maybe try and launch an attack into turn 9 down the second DRS zone. He gets a nice exit out of turn 7, which is critical for trying to make a pass down into turn 9. If you can get good exits out of 7, you can really launch an attack here, and that's exactly what Blockman is doing. They're side by side, heading around the left-hand sweeper, but Mighty Wombat has got the traction, and he keeps the position. He stays in P3. Blockman has to give in and stay in 4th. JBH, meanwhile, he's hovering behind. So is Nico in P6 as they head underneath the hotel, out of the hotel section now, and towards the final 2 turns. Wombat is still losing a little bit of time as Axis sets a new fastest lap. Can anyone beat it? Don't really think so. Axis has got real pace right now. No one's really in a position to try and challenge him. Out of turn 1, around turn 2, up the hill, and around turn 3. Blockman only 3/10 behind as they head down the hill towards the hairpin of turn 5. Now, I saw in Pacific Tier 1, you can well and truly set up some dive bombs into that hairpin. You just need to be committed enough on the brakes to get it done. As Captain Schmeg spins at the hotel section. He'll get his car pointed back in the right direction, but he's now a long, long way behind. Oh, and that's Underwood spinning. That's at turn 2. Sorry, turn 3, I should say. He'll get himself pointed back in the right direction, get going. Hash, his teammate, meanwhile, has moved himself into P10. Mighty Wombat under attack here. Blockman looking round the long way this time. At turn 9. Swoops round the outside. Can Mighty Wombat fight back? The answer is no. From the looks of things. Oh, hang on. Yes, he can. Around the outside, he's looking at 10 and 11 and into turn 12. He's going to try and make it stick. And he does make it stick. Around the outside at turn 12. What a great bit of driving from Mighty Wombat to pull that off. Granted, it took a lot of respect from both drivers to not hit one another there. But I thought Blockman got the job done at the exit of turn 9. But Wombat proved me wrong and swooped round the outside of the Haas at 10, 11, and most critically turn 12. Fantastic. Around turn 2, around turn 3. 0.4 of a second now separating these two. It increases to half a second as JBH, he's still about 0.8 behind. He hasn't made any massive ground on the two in front as Captain Schmeg gets a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. Nico's hovering behind as well in P6. Unable to do anything at this stage. Just a little too far behind to do anything. Into the hairpin of turn 6 and around turn 7. Onto the second long straightaway. DRS open for Blockman. Captain Schmeg spins again, this time at the final corner. He actually went onto the grass briefly there. He's probably gone going again. Around turn 9. Around this marina section now. Turns 10, 11 and 12. Blockman, he's not close enough to do anything here other than try and apply pressure to the car in front. Meanwhile, with no pressure at all, as Axis leading the way. 4.2 seconds is now the gap between the top two. Axis looking really good, really comfortable out there right now. All he needs to do is keep his eyes forward, not make any mistakes. That's all you need to do when you're that far out in front and controlling the race. Just keep your eyes forward, keep driving well. The results will come. Oh, and this is not driving well from Mighty Wombat. Oh dear, he tumbles down the order, down to 9th place. He's got front wing damage as well. He's hit the wall on the inside of turn 1. He has to do an entire lap with that missing front wing. He has to come in and get it fixed. He more than likely lost it on the outside curb at turn 1. The car spun and he couldn't recover it. I suppose the really important thing is that he's still in the race. If he'd retired from that crash, this would be a tremendous blow to his championship hopes. Captain Schmeg spins again. He's got a missing front wing and we have a virtual safety car. We've got a VSC deployed. Alright, this will give Captain Schmeg the opportunity to get into the pits and put on a new front wing. Now, depending on how long this VSC stays out, this may or may not help Mighty Wombat. Completely depends on how long it stays out. Now, everyone has to drive incredibly carefully. You do not want to get a speeding penalty during a VSC period, otherwise it's a drive-through. So you need to keep an eye on that delta. Will anyone pit? Take advantage of this VSC period? Nope. Everyone's staying out. Motion God's coming in, so is Mighty Wombat, but that's understandable. Oh, dearie me. Wombat... yeah. Motion God was going in very slowly for some reason. Didn't need to be driving that slowly at pit entry. New front wing for Mighty Wombat. And Saucy has been given a drive-through penalty for speeding during the safety car, the virtual safety car. As I said, you need to be incredibly careful with the delta. You need to have your eyes glued to the delta because it can chop and change on you in an instant And if you're not ready, then the game will catch you out and it will give you a drive-through penalty. And that's exactly what happened to Saucy. So he'll need to pit and serve that as soon as possible. Now that's going to ruin his chance of finishing towards the top of the table. He's going to plummet down through the order. Around the marina section we go. Blockman has now got 1 second in hand over JBH. JBH needs to get within that 1 second range so he can get some DRS and try and close in on the Haas driver. Saucy doesn't bother serving the drive-through. Now he can stay out for a couple of laps and not serve that drive-through, but he needs to come in at some point. Can't stay out there forever, I'm afraid. Gonna have to serve it at some stage. Otherwise, the game will disqualify you for not serving the drive-through. Around turn 5, you can see a Williams in the background there. That's Captain Schmeg. He has now gone a lap down. But as I mentioned, so long as you finish, you will score points. Top 15 in Race Spec scores points, and we only have 13 cars, so you will score something. Into the hairpin, turn 6. See Nico putting himself in a solid position, but JBH gets a brilliant exit out to turn 7. He'll keep Nico at bay, I would think, as they head towards turn 9. Nico closes in by a bit, but not by enough to try and attack the Mercedes into the left-hand sweeper. Around the marina section now, turns 10, 11, and into 12. The gap between these two is setting up 0.4 of a second. Saucy, yeah, you're going to have to serve it now, buddy, I think. And in he comes. Yeah. Really, really unfortunate that that sort of thing can happen, but I'm afraid it's just how the game works. Got to keep your eyes glued on the Delta. Can't look away. JBH now assumes 3rd position with Nico right behind in 4th. Shizant now jumps into the top 5. So his teammate has been punished for his actions. As a result, his teammate gets a benefit. Moves himself into the top 5. Nico, DRS open. You see the Mercedes pulling away down the straights, even without battery. His Mighty Wombat sets a new fastest lap at 27.3. JBH, he was dumping whatever battery he had down that straight. You can see Nico closing in. But once again, JBH getting a pretty decent exit out of turn 7, which is going to keep Nico at bay. You can see Captain Shrek, he wants to get by, he wants to get in front. So he's going to provide a distraction for these two cars. Yeah. One of those great debates within online league racing of how lap cars should behave. I mean, when you got pace, yeah, you have every right to try and get your way through. But you are interfering with the battle. You're just providing a distraction. So you... Oh, and yeah, there. Spin. As he goes into the pits. Like... Yeah. Motion God has spun. That is at turn 9. He gets himself going again, and Captain Schmeg retires from the session in the pit lane. He is done for the day. Axis, meanwhile, 7.4 seconds. This has been a sublime performance from Axis right now. Looked unchallenged, and will remain unchallenged, I would think, unless there was a race-changing safety car at some point. Blockman in P2, 7.1 seconds behind. He's unable to close in on Axis, but he is pulling away from those behind. He's got 2.5 seconds now over JBH, who still has Nico behind. He's got battery switched on, but he's not closing in by anywhere near enough to try and challenge JBH for P3. He's staying behind. Black Baller 0.4 behind Shizant as they head around the sweeper of turn 9. Oh, Black Baller, you have to be so So careful with that outside curb at turn 9. Especially during the race when you've got worn out tyres. The car can just go on you on that outside curb. Oh, and I think he's lost a little bit of time underneath the hotel. The gap's increased to now 9/10 of a second. Keep an eye on this though. This is just about the only battle we have on track. JBH and Nico battling for P3. 6.5 tenths separating these two as they head through the first sector and down the hill towards turn 5, the beginning of the middle sector. Nico needs to gain a whole chunk of time to try and challenge JBH, but I don't think that's his ultimate goal. You can see he is using battery, but that's because he can afford to use it. Look how much he's close in, actually. JBH might be a tad bit vulnerable as we... Oh. You could hear it, the massive lift. Nico doesn't want to attack, and he doesn't get a great run out of turn 7. That means he can't challenge JBH into turn 9. Saucy gets by Hash at turn 6. Could Hash fight back? Gets a pretty tidy run out of turn 7. Got a bit of battery to spend, but you can leave Saucy just pulling away. Saucy used battery in response at the exit of turn 7 just to pull away. And as a result, he will hang on to his 7th place, and Hash will not be in a position to try and take that place back. Nico still hovering behind JBH. Not really gaining through this final sector. Mighty Wombat gets by Underwood. So Wombat's back inside the top 10. And his next target is Flavius in the Alpine. As they head around turn 12. See how much Wombat closes in. Underwood now joins the melee as they go underneath the hotel and out to turn 14. Up towards turns 15 and 16 now. Final 2 turns. Running wide is Flavius. You've got to be so careful with that curb too. Oh, it's tight at the exit of the final corner as Hash, I believe, has spun. Yes, he has. Oh dear, as Flavius gets passed by Wombat around the outside, and Underwood gets underneath Flavius and takes P10. So the Alpine driver down to 11th position. Wombat. Oh, sorry, Nico making a mistake there. It's cost him precious time. He's now 1.2 seconds behind JBH. He's given JBH a bit of a release here. Release of pressure. Can JBH capitalise and pull away from the AlphaTauri driver? Still got 1.1 seconds over Nico. Nico needs to get a move on. Cannot afford to make those kinds of mistakes. Especially when you're trying to drive conservatively rather than aggressively. When you drive conservative, it is all about consistency. When you make those kinds of mistakes and ruin your rhythm, ruin your momentum, when you're in that conservative mindset, it's really difficult to get it back. I know that because I tend to drive conservatively myself. Black Ball is into the pits, and same with Saucy. They'll be moving on to the hard compound tyre, and they'll go to the end of the race on those. Clean stops. No troubles. Hash is into the pits as well as Wombat overtakes him. Now Wombat is on a bit of a skewed strategy after his incident here at turn 1. He, I think, will be on a 2-stop strategy. He might have an extra set of mediums he could hop onto and try and finish the race on those. But I think best case scenario is that a safety car comes out between lap or maybe 15 to lap 18. And that way he can try and put on a set of something, go to the end on that tyre, and maybe try and fight for a better point scoring position. Because of course you've got to remember, this guy is fighting for the championship, for the Drivers' Championship. He cannot afford to lose too many points to his rivals Axis and Nico. Particularly Axis, as he comes into the pits. And he'll move on to a set of hard tyres. Blockman will take the lead as he heads down the main straightaway towards turn 1 to begin lap 14 of 29. We've got 16 laps to go. New set of hards for Axis, and away he leaves. Nico, meanwhile, 7 tenths behind as they head up the hill and around turn 3. Nico, he's not been in any position to try and attack attack JBH during this battle. He would get close and he would either back off and not go for the move, or he wouldn't get the exit he needs out of turn 7 to try and challenge into turn 9. Wombat moving up into 5th now as Shizant makes his way through the ridiculous pit lane exit as Hash has spun again. This time it's the inside wall at turn 14. Easy spot to do that, to be honest. That exit of turn 14 is very nasty. It's very easy to lose control. Hash, I think, has avoided damage, so I suppose that's the silver lining to his little incident. And again, Nico not close enough to attack JBH around turn 9. Black Baller, meanwhile, is on the attack. He slingshots by Shizant like it's nothing and moves himself into P6. But can Shizant fight back? Oh, he had a little look down the inside. I thought he might go for it. But no, he stays behind. Doesn't get a great run through turn 7. And he might be a tad bit vulnerable now to his teammate, Saucy, who closes in down this long straight. Look at the overspeed he's got. Quite a difference. They head into turn 9. Out to the left-hand sweeper. And through this marina section, you see all the expensive yachts on the inside there. As we go towards a very expensive hotel, which is the signature of this racetrack. Sort of perfectly describes this place. The most iconic part of the circuit is some building that sits on top of it. It's not the racetrack itself. Out to turn 16. And down the main straightaway towards turn 1. Right and ball. All yellows are out. It's Emotion God spinning. And he motions himself back in the right direction. Gets going again. Be interesting to see how Saucy picks off the two in front of him if he can. And look at Shizant looking down the inside at turn 5. Trying to create a battle here with Black Baller, to his credit. Almost made that work. Black Baller gave him room though. There was plenty of respect being shown. Now, what does Saucy do here? Seeing him a slipstream, Black Baller covers the inside. He lifts off. Probably a wise choice. Doesn't quite know what these two are going to do. And Shizant goes round the outside of Black Baller, gets the position. But Black Baller will have DRS here. So it'll be difficult for Saucy to get by. He's using his battery. They climb up through the gears towards turn 9. Yeah, he's just not in a position to attack. This is sort of a perfect demonstration of the difficulties of being stuck in a DRS train. When you're stuck in a third position or lower, it's almost impossible to move yourself forward unless you go for an interesting opportunity that's available to you in a slightly more awkward part of the racetrack. He through here, he's unable to find a way by. But maybe he could find a way by into the hairpin of turn 5. That's where I'd be looking if I wanted to make a pass without DRS. It'd be that hairpin at turn 5. It's quite possible for someone to send it down the inside. Nico, still close, but not close enough. Out of turn 4 now, heading towards turn 5. Saucy's not close enough to send it here. He needs to be about 3/10 behind or so to really try and send it. Using his battery, opens DRS, sits in the slipstream. He's closing in, closing in, closing in, closing in. As we go into the hairpin of turn 6, diving down the inside. Oh, but he could have been a bit more committed there. Oh, Black Baller runs wide though and rolls out the red carpet. Little mistake there. Can be easy to do, especially when you get on the throttle too soon out of turn 7. The Black Baller, he just lost a little bit of control. He had to give up the position as JBH pits in. Alrighty. He's in for a set of medium compound tyres. And this is actually not a bad call. The undercut is pretty powerful around here. So Nico might have just blown his chances of trying to take second. Well, actually third. Provisionally. Because yeah, that undercut, if JBH gets a pretty decent outlap, he should get an undercut here. Should be a pretty powerful one at that. Axis, meanwhile, look at him. He is on form right now. Looking somewhat untouchable. Yellows are out. It's Motion God again. Spinning. Puts himself back in the right direction. Here comes Hash to arrive on the scene. He'll be directly behind Motion God as Hash, running wide at the exit of the final corner, gets a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. Here comes Saucy on his teammate now. Looks to the inside. Doesn't fully commit to the move. Understandable, he's too far back to really go for the move. Out to turn 7. Shizen gets a pretty good exit there. But Saucy's teammate has DRS, and look at the overspeed. It is incredible. The inside line is open for Saucy. He takes that inside line and gets in front of his teammate. Saucy back up into P6 as Hash overtakes Motion God. And Nico's in. Has the undercut worked for JVH? I mentioned the undercut is powerful here. Has he actually made the undercut work? Let's find out. Heading out of the pits now. JVH, meanwhile, is heading down the main straightaway towards turn 1. Nico will flick off the speed limiter. There goes JVH. Yeah. Oh, and Nico's thrown it into the wall at pit exit. Oh, dearie me. It really is truly a stupid pit exit. It's one of my least favourite pit exits on the Formula 1 calendar. It is so heinously stupid. And Nico, he's just caught himself out. He's bumped the wall, damaged his front wing. Look at him now. He's behind Mighty Wombat. He's well behind JBH. Made full use of those fresh tyres. So Nico, he'll have to make another pit stop. Hopefully, he has another set of mediums he could hop onto. Hopefully. Axis, meanwhile, completely untouchable. He's set to go to the end. Blockman has to pit, and that's exactly what he's doing now. Now, Blockman, it's going to be tight between him and JBH, potentially. We'll have to wait and see here. Gets off his old hard tyres onto a set of mediums. Oh, I think Blockman should have JBH covered. Coming out of the pits, he doesn't make the same mistake. Nico gets a 3-second time penalty. Well, actually, this might be a tad bit closer than I thought. There is Blockman, and here's JBH. 8/10 behind. He's going to have DRS. He's going to have DRS down this back straight. So JBH has put himself in a position where he could fight for second. Now, he does have a tyre disadvantage in terms of his age. I mean, he's got 2 lap older medium compound tyres. But look at that gap shrink. JBH closing in. And I highly recommend that he battles straight away. If he's in a position to try and battle, you really need to go for it. Because Blockman has the tyre advantage with those younger tyres. You need to go for it now, where you're in a position to try and attack. And unfortunately, he's not quite close enough to attack into turn 9. But hopefully he can keep the pressure alive through this final sector so he could put himself in a position to attack on the next lap. Yeah, he can't afford to be conservative here. He needs to go for it. As they head underneath the hotel. You can see the gap increasing though. It's now 7/10, 8/10. So, yeah, not the best final sector from JBH. Blockman's pulling away. There's not much JBH can do about it. So Blockman's got pace. He's got pace now. Those tyres are up to temperature. They're working well as Wombat comes in for his second stop. What will he move on to? Set of mediums? Set of mediums. He had a second set, and they should go to the end pretty easily. Will he come out in front of Underwood? I think he should. Yeah, he should. Underneath turn 1. Be careful, be careful, be careful. Be very, very careful. Yep, he'll come out well in front of Underwood. And now he'll have his sights set on Black Ball if he can close that gap. It's a big gap. But every point's going to matter for Mighty Wombat for the sake of the Drivers' Championship. JBH has lost time to Blockman. He put himself in a solid position, to his credit. Put himself in a position where he could have attacked for second. But Blockman's just had so much pace. He's just pulled away from JBH, and JBH can't do much about it. So at this point, I think he's going to try and accept third place, which is still a decent points haul for himself in Mercedes. Blockman now, could he catch up to Axis? It's a big gap, 10.1 seconds, as he comes around the final corner to begin lap 21 of 29. So he's got 9 laps to close that gap up to Axis. It is not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. He needs to close in by over a second a lap. Considering the form that Axis demonstrated during the earlier phases of this race, yeah, he's going to be a tough cookie to close. A tough cookie to close in. Shizant behind his teammate, not quite close enough to do anything here. In fact, nobody is close enough to do anything at this stage. Everyone's pretty well spread out. Everyone's done their necessary pit stops, and they're all set to go to the end of the race. So the tyres don't necessarily mean too much right now. We'll have a look at the other details. We'll switch it back to the tyre graphic in a bit. We got Shizant, Nico, Hash and Flavius with time penalties. All of them have 3 seconds next to their name, and we've still got a few more laps to go, so a few extra drivers might get some time penalties. See there, everyone's made at least one pit stop. In terms of position changes, JBH has done a pretty solid job. He's made up 3. Shizant's made up 4. Black Baller has made the most out of anybody. He's up 6 positions. In terms of biggest losers though, Mighty Wombat down 3. Down 3 very critical spots. Nico down 4, Hash down 3. Underwood, he hasn't gained or lost any positions, but to his credit, he's come back from a drive-through penalty. He's done a really good job to get back to where he qualified. So no, credit to Underwood for driving this well and keeping out of trouble. But yeah, that drive-through penalty at the beginning of the race for jump starting, yeah, it's hurt him. Because he's demonstrated he's got decent pace. Suppose we'll keep our eyes towards the front, I guess. Not too much else to look at right now. The gap between the top 2 has reduced to 8.3 seconds. So the gap is closing. Just not at the rate required, I think. But will that stop Blockman from giving it his all? Don't think so. I think if you got an opportunity to take it, might as well go for it. See what happens. Give it your everything for a solid 5-6 laps and see what the gap's like after that point. And if you feel like you can't catch up, then you concede and you accept second. But you might as well give it a crack and try and close that gap up. Because you never know. Axis could make a small mistake and will open up an opportunity. He could get a time penalty that opens up an opportunity. Who knows? Either way, what I'm trying to say is you don't give up. Especially when you have a sniff of a race win. You try and give it your all. As they head into the hairpin of turn 5. The gap down to 8 seconds. Axis making his way towards turn 6. There's Motion God in front. Down in 12th place. Going to be put a lap down in a few moments' time. Shizant still keeping up with his teammate. Unable to really do anything. Look at this. Mighty Wombat already on the back of Black Baller. Half a second separating these two. Wombat has put the hammer down and he is caught up to Black Baller. And he's going to get by here. Look at this. The overspeed. Oh, that is ridiculous. Wombat gets by with ease. He's into P6. Another crucial position for the sake of his championship. Suppose I could do some quick math calculations for the championship. There were 19 points separating the top 2 in the Drivers' Championship, with Axis getting the win. And who's got fastest lap right now out of curiosity? It is Blockman who has fastest lap. So Axis will score 30 if he maintains this race lead, whereas with P6 it's 23-20, 17-15, 13. This is going to be a 17-point swing in Axis's favour. The gap between the top two in the Drivers' Championship is going to reduce to 2 points with 2 rounds to go. And will essentially turn the championship fight, the Drivers' Championship fight, to a 2-horse race. Couldn't add too many more twos to that now, could you? No, this is setting up for an interesting storyline heading into next week's race. And another newly configured racetrack at Albert Park for the Australian Grand Prix. Be interesting to see how the Americas drivers fare. It'll be interesting to see how all the drivers fare in next week's race at the new racetrack, or the newly configured racetrack. Gap's reduced down to 7 seconds. Axis will cross the line to begin lap 25. We have got 5 laps to go in this Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Blockman putting together some good laps, closing the gap up to the race leader. But unfortunately, he is running out of laps. He is running out of time. He's still doing a really good job out there in P2. JBH, he's got a comfy margin to the car behind. He's got a clear track in front of him. All he needs to do is remain calm, and P3 is his. Oh, Wombat has spun! Oh my goodness me. He has spun at the penultimate corner. He is down to P7. Oh my goodness. That critical P6 he took has now been taken away by his own mistake at the second to last corner. Oh dear, oh dear. He now has Underwood and Nico directly behind him. No obvious damage on the McLaren from what I can see, but we now have a 3-way fight for 7th position with Wombat, Underwood and Nico. As Nico overtakes Underwood, he moves himself into P8, but of course he has a 3-second time penalty to try and overcome. Definitely won't be easy. Or with the pace. Oh, Axis has retired! Oh my goodness! He has thrown it away! The race leader has thrown it away! Oh my goodness! A dramatic turn nobody saw coming! The leader's done! And we have a safety car! Oh, this was the lucky break Mighty Wombat needed. The mother and father of all gifts has been given to Wombat. I was going to mention, with Wombat spinning out at the penultimate corner, moving him down to 7th, it would have meant a tie between the top 2 in the drivers. Well, that's gone out the window because the race leader, after driving brilliantly all the way through, has thrown it away with 4 laps to go. Are you kidding me? Axis would be either furious or completely disappointed. Maybe both. Oh my. Wow. Right. This changes everything. In terms of the race, this changes everything. Who's pitting? First of all, I reckon a couple of drivers might gamble with it, but you got to keep that lap counter in mind. Okay? Blockman staying out. That might be the sensible call, because that safety car is guaranteed to go back into the pits with 2 laps to go. It is currently 3 laps to go. So if you go in the pit lane like JBH, you might not catch up to the leader. Very important point to make. He's put on soft tyres. He needs to get a move on. If he can catch up to Blockman at the end of this lap, he could challenge for the race win. Could. Saucy has taken P2. Shizit moves into 3rd. They stay out. So this is the gamble. Do you take the fresh tyres? So you got more pace. Or do you stay out, take track position, knowing that the safety car is going to come in with 2 to go? Alright, the leader is making his way out to turn 7. These 3 are heading down the back straightaway towards turn 6. They've still got a fair bit of catching up to do. And that safety car is going to be hauling down the straights. We got others in. We got Underwood in. Black Baller has come in. Nico's come in. They're not going to catch up because, as I've said, the safety car goes in with 2 to go. I think some of these guys have just thrown away track position without even knowing it. Alright, so Blockman's backing up. To be honest, he should be right behind the safety car trying to pull away. He's now just allowing Saucy and Shizant to catch up. Now, you can't pass lap cars. Okay? We don't have Michael Massey here to move people out of the way. So you got to stay behind the lap cars. This is a huge benefit for Blockman, because now he's got 2 cars in the form of Flavius and Motion God between him and Saucy. To me, it's completely wrong that lap cars can have this effect, but whatever. It's the rules of the game, so you can't do anything about it. So Saucy needs to get by the 2 lap cars to have any shot of challenging Blockman, who has taken off. Look at the gap. It's huge between P1 and 2, which is absolutely wrong. It's now 2 laps to go here at Abu Dhabi, and JBH is on the attack, looking around the outside of turn 1. He gets in front. What a move from JBH, an authoritative statement around the outside. Next is Saucy. Saucy, he has to get by Motion God. There he is there. Still in position. He hasn't moved out of the way. So no, I think the lap cars have gifted Blockman the win here. Really unfortunate that lap cars can have that kind of effect on a race, but you know, that's the rules. Here comes JBH down the inside. Can't fully commit to the move. Out to turn 7 towards turn 8. Climbing up through the gears. Using all the battery he has left. Saucy's doing the same. Send it, man. You gotta get by. Looking round the outside at turn 9. Saucy tries to cover the inside line. As they head out of the sweeper, JBH gets in front the long way round. What a manoeuvre. Around turn 12 now. The gap's now 2 seconds as Wombat and Shizant are battling for position. Wombat is battling for 4th. Oh, and there goes Shizant into the wall. Oh, and he's got a broken front wing. He now slams the car into the rear wall. Oh dearie me. Wombat's now into 4th. He's 4th. What is happening? 1.5 seconds as JBH now sets fastest lap. I don't think he can close in that much on 1 lap. And he's got a time penalty anyway, 3 seconds next to his name, even if he could get by Blockman, which would be a hell of a challenge within himself. He's not going to pull out 3 seconds to keep that race lead. He needs to worry about creating 3 seconds to Saucy in P3. Otherwise, Saucy, who got a drive-through, by the way, after the virtual safety car period we had in the middle of the race, he's set for a podium finish around turn 8 for the final time. The gap reduces to 1.1 seconds. JBH is out of battery. Saucy's losing ground, but he's still within 3 seconds of the Mercedes. Around turn 9, up towards turns 10, 11, and 12. The Marina section. Blockman gets through unscathed. Around the hotel section. Just crawl through it, mate. Don't make any mistakes. That's exactly what he does. He gets through it unscathed. 2 corners remain for a Blockman. He put together a fine drive tonight, but I'm sure as hell he wasn't expecting a win, but he's been given one. He wins the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, with Saucy coming home in 2nd and JBH completing the podium places. Mighty Wombat finishes in 4th. 17 points in his favour, which means the gap between the top 2 increases to 36 points. Unbelievable. Underwood, who got a drive-through, at the very beginning of the race, finishes in 5th. Nico, who crashed at pit exit, finishes in P6. There we are. There we are. Blockman wins the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Saucy finishes in 2nd. 3rd goes to JBH. How about that? The unofficial results of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Blockman is your race winner, with Saucy coming home in 2nd. JBH completes the podium places in 3rd with fastest lap. Mighty Wombat finishes in 4th. Underwood 5th. Nico in 6th, followed by Blackballer, Shizant, Hash, Motion God, and Flavius, our final finisher, in 11th. Axis isn't classified. That's a DNF. He didn't hit the 90% mark, so he will score 0. 0. And Catherine Smeg was our other assignment as well, sorry to mention. I almost forgot to mention. I wasn't expecting that. No one was expecting that. The whole race fell to bits during the final 3 laps. Nobody saw that coming. Well, that race, I thought the championship was going to tighten up between the top 2. Axis was on form. Put the car on pole. Led every lap. Didn't put a foot wrong. Until that moment. At the final corner. With about 4 laps to go. And then his entire race unraveled within an instant. That's how fine the margins can be in this game. That's how fine the margins are. You make one slight mistake. And you don't have to do anything too hard. You don't have to hit the wall at high speed. You can hit the wall at 40 kilometers an hour and destroy your car with this game. It does not take much. And that's exactly what happened to Axis. What was going to look like a straight-up dogfight between Wombat and Axis has now turned into a 36-point advantage to Wombat. He's got a race win in hand with 2 rounds to go. It means that Wombat, all he has to do is finish in front of Axis, heading into the second last round, and it's done. I can't believe it. Yeah. And no, I agree, Saucy. After what happened during that VSC period, I imagine you will be quite happy with P2. But man, you got to keep an eye on that Delta all the time. That VSC Delta, it chops and changes and does all sorts of things. So you got to keep an eye on it. Something that I do, you just look at the Delta and you just drive using your peripheral vision. It is a bit dangerous because you're not fully focusing on the road, but it's kind of what you have to do. Because if you don't do that, if you don't properly pay attention to the Delta, you can be so easily caught out by it, and you get a drive-through. Yeah, that's all it takes, man. It doesn't matter. If it's red, it's red. It can be red by 1,000th of a second and it will give you a drive-through. Like, it doesn't take much. The game doesn't care. It's just you've got to take the responsibility of micromanaging the delta every single corner you go through. It's ridiculous how much micromanagement you have to do. And at particular racetracks, it is shocking how bad the delta is. So, yeah. I'm not surprised. Oh, thank you, Saucy. Yeah, I'm sorry to see what happened to you there, Shizm, with you and Wombat underneath the hotel. Looking pretty solid there after the safety car period. Is quite unfortunate. So, but there we are. I think they'll wrap everything up, folks. I'm completely flabbergasted about that ending. I'm just done. I was set for a nice calm finish, and then everything got turned upside down. Such is league racing, I suppose. But with the race finally over, it's time for us to end the stream. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been LaneEveringham, and we'll see you next week for round 14, the penultimate round of the championship at another newly configured racetrack, Albert Park, for the Australian Grand Prix. And until then, it's goodbye.